increased revenue, then would you be willing then to take a decrease in the amount of money that the county is then giving you?
The purpose of this looking out is when you have the maintenance of effort that goes into effect year after year after year, 911 is trying to come up with a way to make it so we don't have to ask for an increase for at least 3 years.
I appreciate that.
This is not a total fix to the revenue issue, but it's a Band-Aid for the next 3 years. And I've explained to the mayor that I have no intention of asking this commission for an increase for at least the next 3 years. But we're gonna have to find a different way to try to find ways to bring revenue in, and it takes time, and this is one step that we're trying to attempt. And this may not get through, I don't know. I'd like to have this commission support attempting to do that. Because we're attempting to change state law. It's the only way we're gonna get anything done. We've tried going through the state board in years past. They were not supportive of it at the time. So since we've been supportive of TN 911, that's what they do, is try to change state law to better fund 911 for not just now, but in the future.
Okay.
And take part of the burden out of local government.
Okay, yes.
Russell Reed.
Yes.
Corey Davenport.
Yes.
Karen Ashford.
I work from 911, but it doesn't affect my vote, yes.
Jim Bush.
Yes.
Greg Mitchell.
Yes.
Brent Raven.
Yes.
Randy Gannon.
Yes.
Ronnie Mahaffey.
Yes.
9-4.
Next item on the, again, thank you, DJ. Oh, you got nothing, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I have one more item.
Sorry about that, Roy.
Kim, begin the discussion on this. I'm trying to come up with a policy that better defines issues that we have, like Mr. Logan, in reference to private lane name issues. So I've drafted this policy that will authorize 911 to directly address issues with 911 private lane name changes. We're already issued the new 911 addresses. If there's change in property ownership or any issues, it would be the authority of the 911 board to investigate and delegate and work these issues out. 911 has already had to do the majority of the investigation on this to find out and identify the property owners, who it affects, utilities. So I put it into a more precise, clear policy that outlines the step. The first part, requesting a new 911 address, is no different from what we're doing now. This just spells it out clearly so people will know the process. And then moving on to the second page, paragraph C, under requesting a change of existing private lane name, this goes to what Jim was making mention of before, get signatures from any property owners that it affects. If it's only one or two property owners, it's much simpler, but if you have a lane that's affecting numerous people, sometimes the properties get broke up and sold, then of course all property owners will be interviewed, signatures obtained, and everybody being 100% of agreements. So I think it's outlines
Put that in there.
Where is the,
I didn't hear you.
It's the back page under requested change in existing private lane.
okay, I see where it's by the private lane name change and document their approval of the change, but can we just add get signatures? Get a signature? Rather than, that would be the only thing.
And majority rules, I mean.
That was going to be my next question.
Yeah.
What happens when somebody says no?
Right.
Because I see where you see and document their approval, but I'd like to see their signature.
And, you know,
That would be good.
Might be on your form, you just have yes or no, and they sign whichever side they.
you know, private lane, you know, technically, if you got 3 people on it, I mean, it's not a private lane.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if one person's on there, yeah, it's private. But if you got, you know, even with 2 people, I mean, you're still gonna have a disagreement.
Well, if there's a disagreement, then there won't be a change. We've had this issue before with there's a disagreement. But this would be mediated through the 911 board on private lane names, which is private property, not county road. That's still gonna remain the authority of this board, this commission, if any issues arise. That doesn't change. I'm just asking for private property. None of it's maintained by the county. It's not county property. The county doesn't pay for the road signs. So in my mind, it's not really an issue for the commission to have.
I appreciate you making up this policy.
differentiating between private lane and not private lane is whether or not it is maintained by the county road department?
Yes, sir, that's part of it.
My question is, and I know y'all want to see signatures added to that.
Yes,
Yeah.
I would like to see that.
Y'all, or y'all want to wait till you receive a hard copy of this and it's added to it where you can.
Well, if it's in
see
the
it?
minutes that he's agreed to put them changes in there, then he can give it to us later.
I'd like to.
You want to see a hard copy?
How about we amend it to what y'all are saying and then ask you to bring back the amended version and present it to us next month? But we can go ahead and approve this, but you have to bring it back next month to give you what you want.
Right?
Roy, and I know you indicate it's the same, but this is new to me, so I apologize. But like on page 1, request an email address, number 1. Any resident in County County that resides on private property with a driveway longer than 800 feet is required to have a private lane named for 9/11 emergency dispatch purposes. Is that county requirement or is that state requirement?
It's statewide. It's a uniform, understood 911 requirement. Reason for that is anything longer 800 feet makes it easier for addressing purposes and giving directions over the radio.
Okay, and I just come back around. You're saying it's required, so how do we enforce that?
When they build a structure or have utilities installed, the utilities companies contact 911 if it's longer than 800 feet, and they will not issue an address until that requirement is met.
Can I ask a question?
No, sir. No disrespect.
That just strikes me, to be honest with you, a little odd, as I drive in county, goodness, those hollers galore. And you see little roads going off of these side roads, as I call them, the county roads. And my goodness, it would seem to me it's almost routine. There's no sign out at the end of the road.
The attempt in it is to make it clear. Has it been that way for the past 50 years? No. We still have addresses that are longer than 800 feet, but it hasn't been an issue with giving directions. I couldn't tell you when this was adopted. Probably would have been, we hired our addressing consultant in 94, so it was probably adopted in 94, 95, when we had to remap the entire county. It used to be route numbers. So that process began, like I said, roughly 94. So that's about when it started. Now some addresses I'm sure was mixed. But this policy hopes to address issues that occur from here on out, because some of these issues can linger on for months and months and months and even years at times. This is to try, is it a perfect solution? Probably not. But it's an attempt to make clarity.
Thank you.
Here, let's give them a clear directive to put signatures, add signatures to it,
I think so, yes.
and what was
Bring back the
Bring back.
revised version at the next meeting, and just hand it out to us. I mean, unless you got something that you, or email it to us.
Do I have a motion to accept this with these changes? Okay.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to accept that change.
Motion and second to accept this with the changes as directed by the engineer to add these. Call roll.
Janine Floyd,
Yes.
Russell Reed,
Yes.
Corey Davenport,
Yes.
Sharon Ashford.
Yes.
Jim Bush,
Yes.
Greg Mitchell.
Yes.
Brent Brandon.
Yes.
Randy Gannon,
Yes.
Ronnie Mahaffey,
Yes.
9-4.
Motion passed, accepted. Thank you so much, Roger. Next item on the agenda is number 11, John Wilkinson, Industrial Development Board Chairman. Presents 2018-19 annual audit related reports. Request Industrial Development Board coverage on county insurance policy. Along with Matt Calvin, their attorney.
Could we have Mr. Cowan address the board? He's our attorney,
Yes, you can.
and given the complexity, he needs to be.
Sure can. Thank you, sir.
I'm gonna go ahead and hand out our budget, audit. Once again, we got a clean audit. I know you wouldn't have time to review it, but our next meeting is Monday night, I'm available anytime.
Ms. Calvin, you go right ahead. Thank you so much for being here.
Chairman, members of the commission, thank you for letting me speak tonight. I'll be very brief. I know you have a lot on the agenda tonight. My part of this is to ask the county commission to add the IDV to insurance coverage. And I know this has been an issue in the past. The IDV has voted unanimously that if the county commission will allow us to do this, the IDV will pay for any added premium cost to the county policy. And the reason we're asking for this, the board, IDV board has looked into private coverage for officer and director liability and costs upwards of $5,000 or more. So they believe and have asked me here tonight to request that coverage would most likely be much less than that with the county, but we understand that's added cost to the county. So the IDV is willing to pay for that. So if this is something that you would green light tonight, what I would suggest is to allow me to prepare a contract, memorandum of understanding, submit that to Mr. Coates and the county attorney, pass that back and forth, and either have Mr. Bush and Mr. Wilkinson do a final sign-off or come back before this board with a final resolution to that. But we are looking at getting insurance coverage for the IDV. I obviously think that's a great thing in today's time, and the IDV is asking the commission to add, with the caveat that they will pay for any added premium costs to the county. And I'm happy to work with Mr. Coates on that process if we will do that. So that's all I have to request, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have to that.
Wouldn't it be in the same instance as this other situation we got, it needs to go before the budget committee to know what kind of monies we're gonna be looking at?
And then first, I guess first, you have to get a figure.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
What I'm
Budget
understanding you say is there is no cost to us, they're paying.
They are.
100%.
Yes, sir. The IDV.
Our cost plus the cover.
Any additional, because you always already have coverage now, so anything the IDV costs you above what you already pay, the IDV is willing to pay.
Even
Above what we do.
Yeah, they're not gonna pay 4 hours. They're just gonna pay for the day.
even a direct cost of any claims that might be submitted by the IDV.
I think that would be the case. We would flesh that out in the contract, so there's a clear understanding on that. Yes.
We still need time.
Right.
I believe I understood correctly, we're talking about liability insurance,
That's correct.
and that's all.
The officer and director and general liability coverage.
Do you currently have it?
No, sir. The board does not.
And why haven't you had it in the past? What has changed that is now on the table?
Sir, I just handed out an audit. Our auditor highlighted that was a weakness he discovered. And we now have a manufacturing facility on Alexander Drive that operates a heavy gantry crane. It has employees that potentially could get hurt in a building that is technically owned by the IDV. Now, obviously, the employer has insurance, but in the world we live in, am I correct in saying that everyone would get sued?
That's correct.
So we have now brought a business in here that operates heavy equipment. Our liability has exponentially increased.
Of course, I've not had time to look at your audit findings, so I'm not aware of what's in it.
Yes, and I gave you more detail than what's in there. He said we were exposed to risk.
It would be nice to review your audit before we make any
Well, I would just suggest two things. Number one, yes, from a commissioner standpoint, we certainly want to look at it, but I also would encourage you to go before your insurance committee, before it moves even to the budget committee, and let them sort of digest it, do the research, and so on and so forth, to assist y'all in that.
Yeah, and I understand it's very preliminary, but we wanted to bring this before this body just to see if this is something we can explore. Obviously, if it's not something you want to explore, we're going to have to obtain private coverage. That'd be my suggestion, but,
So am I understanding you and Chris are going to kind of get back and forth? Get
that's
some
my
numbers,
suggestion. I haven't talked to Mr. Coates about that, but that would be my suggestion.
and just work out some numbers and bring back, and let us have time to review this, and
Again, I would encourage you to go before the insurance committee, that's one of the roles that they would play. In fact, that's what directly in line to
They
assist
haven't
them.
met in 6 months.
I'm not aware one way or the other. From a standpoint of, I guess, and again, I'm learning, but I've always been under the impression, and more from Commissioner Davenport's comments in the past when he was chairman of the IDB board, of the very distinct separation of y'all standing legally independent, separate, apart from, quote unquote, the rest of the county government. So that sort of surprises me now. It seems like we're sort of crossing over into an arena of connecting the two in various things like this. And so from a legal standpoint, that, again, it just didn't seem to fit my understanding of how the IDB operated so completely independent, separate apart from other aspects of the local government.
Well, the IDB is a creation of statute, obviously, there's specific statutes in IDB, but you are connected to the county, you know, that there's a loose connection to the counties.
Yeah, in my mind, I just compared it, and again, I don't know that it's a correct comparison or not, but from a 911 board standpoint and where they stand as of this moment, yes, there are some very minute connection to the county, but they literally, as of this moment, stand independent of this county from all aspects, from the legal and so on and so forth type deal. So again, to me, the insurance committee could help, I believe, y'all and us both by doing some legwork to.
On that, I got one question.
Yes, sir.
Legally, would not the IDB, they own these buildings now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, those are owned by the IDB or those are county buildings?
Well, it's a gray area. And to Mr. Mahaffey's point, he drew a connection between us and 911. There's one very significant difference. When we have a new member that will be added to the IDB, we come before y'all vote that number on. You see the hierarchy here? That hierarchy does not exist when we're dealing with the 911. That's why, sir, I don't think your example is correct.
And it very well may not be, but like I said, just in my mind, my limited knowledge, and it certainly is limited, I just know y'all stood very independent in y'all's voicing position IDB stands in relationship to the county.
And, sir, that independence is primarily in the decision-making, because we are tasked with the ability to eliminate or reduce property taxes. For that reason, y'all cannot be in any way involved in that. So there's independence in decision-making, but as far as the makeup of the board, that's ultimately at your directive. So we are a subset, and we are kept at arm's length because of the transparency of the issues in which we engage.
And your point would really seem to re-emphasize or reinforce my point. With y'all be independent from your decision-making standpoint, and you're asking to be joined to our liability coverage, and we have no part in the decision process?
Well,
that even adds some great concern.
Let me push back on that a little bit. When y'all became commissioners, y'all voted, y'all made a decision. I support on the garbage dump. Okay, that resulted in a lawsuit. Y'all are not personally liable for your votes. We're in the wind. We make a decision as an IDB member, we can personally be sued. That's what officers and directors of insurance would protect us with. So,
and commissioners cannot be personally sued?
I do not believe you are. Y'all have some type of.
We can be.
Oh, my goodness. Never heard that one before. I'd see that one in writing. From a legal standpoint.
And bringing that up, with him being the city's attorney, that's a conflict of interest right there, so let's just go on.
But again, yeah.
And I'm
Bottom
not,
line is, he's not liable.
I'm not an attorney for the lawsuit, of the trash lawsuit.
When it boils right down to
In hindsight, that was a bad example.
I recuse myself from that decision, I'm not involved in that lawsuit.
when it boils right down to
Make
it,
sure
are we
that that's
liable?
clear, would you? That his statement is false and that Matt is not part of that lawsuit for the city. Lane, will you make sure that's recorded? Thank you.
I just want to know what we're allowing or wanting him to do. Are we going to allow him and Chris to talk? Are we asking him to? I think you're right, it's preliminary. I'd like to see some numbers. I'd like to have some time to look at the audit. I'm okay with tabling and bringing it back.
Just let Chris and him discuss it.
Your information.
I'm totally fine with that. I'll make that motion that they, do we need a motion for that?
No.
Okay, all right. I guess my only other question was, is I saw where you was gonna submit a budget. Did you submit a budget yet?
We have a material change that we'll deal with Monday.
Okay, will you,
I will resubmit.
you'll bring us a budget at a future date?
Yes. The one you've got in there, there's gonna be a material change.
Oh, can I ask you one more question on this? Does it show anywhere how much money you got in the bank right now?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Ask me,
Does it show anywhere how much money you got?
approximately $410,000,
Okay.
with accounts receivable of about $550,000. So net assets, approximately $942,000.
Okay. Thank you.
I tell you what, just to be, that's okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we let Mr. Coates and Mr. Cowan enter into discussions concerning a letter of understanding on the liability insurance for the aggregate.
And second. Okay.
Got a second? Motion made by Russell, second by Graham. Call roll.
Janine Floyd,
Yes.
Russell Reed,
Yes.
Corey Davenport,
Yes, sir, ma'am.
Karen Ashford,
Yes.
Jim Bush,
Yeah.
Greg Mitchell,
Yeah.
Brent Brandon,
Yes.
Randy Gannon,
Yeah, I want to see where this goes, yes.
Ronnie Mahaffey.
Again, I just don't understand the purpose of the insurance committee. If this don't fit that category, then
Well, I think we send them to them, it's not certified. I'm okay with that.
But I think it could save some valuable time, parties involved, for them to do some paperwork. Again, so, if it's not gonna be used for this purpose and as an afterthought, why have it? So I don't know.
Pass, right?
Yes, pass, I'm sorry.
8-1.
Yes.
All right, moving to 12, approve request for a full-time nurse to Gannon County Sheriff's Department. There, we're gonna run that.
Well, I put it in the original budget, and y'all didn't approve it. And I still need a full-time nurse. And I've got a representative from Southern Health Department that's here tonight. The cost is gonna be just under $15,000 for the full-time nurse, higher than what the original contract is.
How much total?
Benefits and all.
Well, I know there.
How much total? How much is the bottom line number?
15,000 additional.
15,000 additional, okay, to what? Don't
Well,
remember.
he's already got, how much, 14,000 in that budget? You remember that line item?
The current,
Regina Ralston's here from Southern Health Partners. She's probably got all that on her contract back there with her. I didn't bring it.
Ryan, we don't recognize Ryan.
renewal contract with a 3% increase as of 8/1/19 is $91,568.28. If we went with a full-time from 30 hours to 40 hours per week, that's an additional $14,534.04, which would make the grand annual cost of $106,102.37. So it's an increase of $14,534.04, and we're halfway through the year, so I'm assuming this might, if it were to pass, be effective 1/1. So in essence, you're talking about $7,250 for this fiscal year. And I know it's not in Darrell's budget. If it comes up short, then a budget commitment toward the end of the fiscal year certainly could be requested and made to cover that cost. Either sheriff is good with other monies to cover it from other sources, or for the, take out the general fund, switch monies over to cover it. That help?
We could also see this back, like what he has. Go back, they'll improve it, it's turned in, come back $200,000 a year, most years. He can come back to us with budget and that
if,
within his own budget.
yes, sir. And if you need money, either way, I'm agreeing with you. Either way, either he's got the money in there, he didn't spend, come close to the end of the fiscal year, that's there to cover the 7,000 plus, or we do a budget amendment to put the money in to cover it. If we put it.
See, the only thing I have a problem with, see, we're jacking with money before the budget process.
But, and Jim, I appreciate that you understand. When I just sat through that jail seminar up in Cookville, and one of the major liabilities and costs and lawsuits, by far the majority of that's tied to the lack of or the incorrect medical, whatever that comes into play in the jail arena in the state of Tennessee, and probably it's true nationwide as well. But this is the area that has the greatest liability for the county and the jail of all the other things, and there are numerous other issues to be dealt with. And this is number one.
Corey? I'm sorry, Mike.
I was just gonna say, believe it or not, Jim and I agree on this. I'm all for having the nurse, and I think it's absolutely probably needed. I guess my only question is we've just sent two other things back to the budget committee, and we're turning around saying this one don't have to go.
And again, I'm only approaching it from one and a half
I
of
know.
the liability standpoint.
We're kind of, we're picking and choosing which ones we want to go to the budget committee, though, are we not?
Absolutely.
Darrell, do you feel good right now that you could move that much money in your budget to cover it?
I have no earthly idea.
What'd you say?
I mean, if you're approving this budget, then, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gina Ralston, I'm the regional sales manager for Southern Health Partners. And so, he's right, I mean, the biggest thing is the liability in the medical. So if you've got a nurse, she's already there 6 hours a day. This would put her there 8 hours a day, Monday through Friday, still on coverage on the weekends, but it would allow more time to get the Medicare or the medication passed in a timely manner. The district physicals have to be done in a timely manner. Sick calls, that's where you get the most of your grievances from inmates, is that when sick calls aren't seen in a timely manner according to them. So it would just allow more time to get that done. I think are you at 75, around 75, 80?
Right around 70 right now.
Okay, so the contract is for 75 people, 75 inmates incarcerated, so it would just allow her 2 more hours per day to be on. And what happens with that is, like, when you have an inmate that's in jail, they know that the nurse is gonna leave at 2 o'clock, then at 3:30 on Friday afternoon, they want a field trip to the ER, or just, they get sicker on the time that they know the nurse is not there. So the longer they're there, it's always the better of the option, because then it cuts down on the transport of an officer having to transport a patient out, or,
Well, saying that now, I understand what you're saying. Well, what would be the difference between the 2 hours and then late in the weekend, and they got the same opportunity?
well,
have
they do
transport
have
home.
some. But, so, the 2 hours a day would allow, if he has an influx of patients or inmates coming in over the weekend, there's gonna be more history and physicals that have to be done on a Monday morning, or more sick calls that have to be done. So it just allows more time. I think he had requested this back in May. We started talking about it back in May and June, so it's a matter of just adding more coverage. I mean, it's basically, if you were at a higher rate of inmates incarcerated, then I would definitely say you needed coverage on the weekends, and that may happen down the road sometime, but with 75 to 80 inmates right now, I think that, she's still on call 24/7. So if something happens, I mean, she's available, we've got coverage. If she can't be there, let's say for instance, if she's got the flu or something happens, it's easier for us to pull a nurse from a different facility for an 8-hour shift to cover than driving 2 hours to get here, or an hour and a half to work 6 hours and trying to find childcare to, it's a much easier to find coverage for an 8-hour shift than trying to find coverage for a 4 or 6 hour shift or whatever. But